Man, that first quarter was something else. I mean, this Utah team looked like everything we thought they could be in 2024. Then Cam Rising gets hurt. Yep, that's about as big of a damper as you can put on a win. Let's talk about where Utah goes from here on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and if you are an everydayer, thank you so much for making us part of your daily routine. If you want to become an everydayer, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with everyone in the YouTube comments. And on today's show, we're going to talk about Utah versus Baylor in all of its glorious parts, not so glorious parts, and talk about what happens next. And as I said in my open, the first quarter was so fun. Utah, yeah, the drive ended up stalling a little bit. Dorian Singer, I thought he slowed a little bit down on Cam Rising's deep pass to him. That felt like that was going to be their first big moment, and it just didn't click out. So Utah punts. Then the Utah defense is like, "Ha, Baylor, your offense is going to not be able to do a thing in Salt Lake City for at least the first half." Give Baylor credit. They moved the ball better in the second half, but I think that was more so Utah's defense getting worn down, if I'm being honest, and some Baylor adjustments. I'll give them some credit too, but I do think this Utah defense is absolutely amazing. I think this Utah defense, I'll talk about this more in the second segment. The best unit on either side of the ball in the Big 12 to me is absolutely Utah's defense right now with what happened in this conference. And it was not a great weekend for the Big 12 in a couple of occasions. And there was a lot of craziness happened across college football. I mean, hey, Notre Dame, Michigan, but that's the one thing we'll have to keep in perspective is we're going to talk about on today's show is that Utah did find a way to win because there were a lot of other teams that did not find ways to win this weekend, right? But anyways, first quarter it's looking so awesome. Second quarter, Utah stalled a little bit and things like that, but then get the ball back and felt like they were building some momentum. And then Cam Rising gets hurt again. And yes, absolutely should have been a late hit. I totally agree with Brock Heward was on the call. I thought he said it perfectly. When the Baylor defender hits Cam out of bounds, like when the first contact is made, okay, that's in bounds. It's the push as Cam is going down out of bounds. It's the push that absolutely should have gotten the flag. Dean Blandino agreed with it too. And also absolutely agree with Brock Heward on this. What in the world are we doing with Gatorade that close? I don't remember seeing Gatorade that close. I just don't think that's a normal thing for it to be that close. Like I'm just saying, I don't know what circumstances led it to be that close. There's no foul play, obviously. It's just this is where it's just so frustrating. Like it's just such a fluke and bad luck because I just think that most of the time you don't see that Gatorade that close in that position. But I'm not an athletic trainer. This is not my area of expertise. But it's just, I mean, as soon as it happened, we're like, no, this can't be happening. Not again. And unfortunately, it was, at least for today. Cam Rising left the game. Now, we did hear the x-rays came back negative on his hand. So hoping that he's okay. Kyle Whittingham said that right now he feels like there's a chance that Cam could even play this week. I'd be surprised if that happened. I think reminds me a lot of Cam Rising getting hurt against USC. And then I think it was bye week and missed Washington State game in 2022, then came back for Arizona. That's what I think it's going to be, but we'll wait and see how things progress. But look, just reaction to Cam's injury. I mean, hopefully it's not long term because if it is long term, then Utah's goals of what they want to do in the Big 12 are drastically in danger. And yes, I know Kansas lost. Kansas State didn't look impressive. Oklahoma State had to shout out to Quinton Jackson almost going in with Arkansas and beating Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State had to gut it out against an unranked opponent at home, right? And I think Arkansas is fine. I think they're solid, but I don't think you look at the game like Utah was going to pretty much blow out Baylor if not for injuries. And unfortunately, they didn't get the chance to versus Arkansas was going to be in with Oklahoma no matter what. And I don't think there's that big of a difference between those two teams. Sure, maybe Arkansas is a little better, but not by that much of a distinction. So can Utah win the Big 12 without Cam Rising? I mean, maybe. I just feel like it'll be incredibly challenging, especially with the way Isaac Wilson has looked so far. Isaac Wilson had a couple of nice moments in this game. I think the first third down he came in, I think that pass would have been completed to Micah Pittman had it not been tipped. He had the nice pass to Money Parks. Dallin Bentley found him on the outside once, but too often holding on to the ball too long. he's still getting up to speed of the college game. And that is something that when you're going to play teams like an Oklahoma State at home in that type of an environment, that's a lot easier said than done. So, yes, Utah could still accomplish great things this fall, no matter who they put out there, but it just gets that much tougher because, as we saw again today, how drastically different this offense looks without Cam Rising. And the other thing I will also mention with Isaac Wilson, because I do see everyone just being like, oh, it's like dumping on Isaac. Not everyone, but a lot of people are like, oh, it's just when Isaac's in and this and that. When Cam goes down, the rest of the pieces need to step up. The offensive line, Tongai had multiple holding penalties tonight. Or in this afternoon, there's just so many instances where it's like, okay, the offensive line will get confused. I think Kump got called for a couple of holdings or actually it was Kump on both of them. It wasn't Tongai, excuse me, Kump 68. So just too many instances, I feel like, where same thing to receivers not creating separation in certain situations, running backs missing holes. That's where the rest of the offense also needs to step up when Cam goes down, because Utah gets bailed out at times by Cam. Right in the first quarter, he had that big scramble for 20 yards when there was nothing really there. And then when your leader goes out like that, you need other guys to rise to the occasion. And no one did for Utah in the second half. Now, Utah absolutely should have put points on the board in the second half, but unfortunately, Cole Becker just didn't have it today, and that's the unfortunate reality you're going to get sometimes in college sports with kickers. And I still have faith in Becker. I think he can still do a really good job, but obviously didn't work out today. So just something that hopefully the special teams are improved going forward. But as for this game, let's circle back to Cam. Cam is still the thing where I look at and I go, okay, if Cam misses extended time, Utah's in a lot of trouble because the playbook shrinks with Isaac Wilson, and Cam can just make plays a few college quarterbacks can make. So hopefully it's not a long-term thing for Cam. And I don't think it will be based on his demeanor and everything on the sideline. Now, they haven't done this. Yes, we heard the x-ray was negative, but like, I don't know if there are other steps and precautions, like how it all works to getting him back on the field. But either way, this offense isn't the same when Cam Rising's not out there. So they need to get him back out there as soon as possible. And Cam's still working through some rust as well, right? This is something I was so frustrated by the notion of like Cam, like one read rising, or like being like, oh, Cam's going to hold Utah back, which I felt like was a narrative last week. But Cam is still returning to the form of the guy who won Utah back-to-back Pac-12 championships. We saw that a couple times tonight where it's like, oh, locks on a read here and, misses a throw here, but then he also follows it up with good plays. And as I mentioned, I do think he should have had a 50-yard touchdown pass to Dorian Singer, but I felt like Dorian in number one just didn't haul it in. And number two, I thought that he just misplayed the ball a little bit in the air as well. So just a devastating injury to have Cam Rising go down. But the important thing is Utah was able to hold on. And why was Utah able to hold on? Because that Utah defense is unreal right now. We got to talk about what I once again believe is the best defensive unit in the Big 12 in one moment. But first, let's talk about our friends at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Picks that make it getting tickets faster and easier for your favorite live events. Game Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets because Game Time has you covered. There are so many fantastic features I love about Game Time, and you can save more on sports, concert, comedy, and theater events near you. How about that seat view? You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Their lowest price guarantee, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. How about that Game Time ticket coverage? Your purchase covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. There are so many fantastic features about Game Time. And if you don't believe me, just go check it out for yourself, because you can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College, capital LONC of the start of each of those words, Locked On in College. And those are LONC capitalized, but the rest of the word lowercase and no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All righty, we can talk more about the offense on another one of these shows another day, but as for right now, want to focus on just a great performance by this Utah defense. I mean, they were spectacular. Yes, up late, couple of drives, that one long touchdown pass, all the missed tackles. not good. I'm not saying it wasn't, but overall, I mean, this defense, I still can't believe it. Negative 10 yards in the first quarter for a power 4 team. Like in 2024, like it's just that's unreal. And it was even there were offensive numbers that were even uglier than that, like earlier in the quarter for Baylor. I mean, it was negative 16 yards of offense with under 7 to play in the first quarter with minus 21 rushing yards. Now, part of the reason that is of course, because the strip sack we saw from Connor O'Toole. Speaking of Connor O'Toole, yeah, Utah has a pretty good pass rusher still. Most teams don't lose a guy like Jonah Ellis, and you're like, okay, the pass rush is going to still be pretty good. But we felt like Utah would be pretty good with Van Fillinger, Logan Fano, and both of them had really nice games too tonight. Saw Fano pop with a couple pressures. Fillinger got home with the sack and also had some nice moments, including him and I think it was him and the blocked field goal. Obviously, I haven't even mentioned that yet. And Teo Johnson, unreal on the return. But the combination of Fillinger and O'Toole breaking it up. But Connor O'Toole is just he's an elite pass rusher. I mean, what else can you say about the guy? The length, he had 2 sacks tonight. I mentioned going into the game when you turned on the tape against Tarleton, their left tackle was slow. I might have missed if their left tackle got hurt. He either got hurt or they benched him. I'm not sure, but I just remember like at one point late in the game looking and seeing that they had a different left tackle in the game. And that's simply because the guy they also had, whether it was an injury or he just couldn't block Connor O'Toole because Connor was wreaking havoc. He may have only had 2 sacks. He was an absolute game wrecker. And it was so much fun watching him fly around out there. When you look at his speed off the edge, his arm length, it just makes him a nightmare for the opposing offenses to try to deal with. And you know who else was an absolute nightmare to deal with tonight? I mean, honestly, there's so many guys we can highlight for this Utah defense. I thought they were just tremendous. I mean, let's just go through, right? I'm a little fired up now because I'm talking about the defense. You know, it's doom and gloom with the offense a little bit, but the defense, how can you not be just over the moon about their performance? Junior Tafuna and Samote Pepa, my gosh, do they eat up double teams like they're absolutely nothing. The amount of times that Baylor couldn't get anything going because the middle was clogged was tremendous. No Tanu Vasa, no David Fotu, no Valiki Vaimahi, really no problem. Even the freshman who came in for Utah, the defensive tackles had some nice moments and did a good job. But Tafuna and Pepa in particular, I thought they were just spectacular. So, and I've been talking for a while about how much I wanted to see Samote Pepa back on the field because I can't get 2022 USC versus USC Samote Pepa out of my head. He was absolutely incredible those games, and he was really dang good tonight. We talked about the pass rushers a little bit too. The Utah defensive line may be the best position group in the Big 12. I'm sure that's one I'm down to debate more. So I think I'm down to debate any of them, obviously, but I'm not saying that like even my Utah, the Big 12, the Utah's defense being the best overall overall unit in the Big 12. I'm not saying that that's 1000% the case, but I just feel I don't feel like there's a ton of worthy challengers based on what we've seen so far. Probably other worthy challenges for Utah's defensive line group. Maybe another one's their linebacker core because when Karene Reed and Lander Barton are on the field together, my word. And even Sione Fotu, I think he's gotten better. Still a player too, where it's like, okay, he's not Karene Reed or Lander Barton, but still really good. But Lander and Karene, I mean, they're just everywhere. They're sideline. This Utah's defense, sideline to sideline quickness is unreal. The amount of times that Baylor tried to get something on the edge in this game, and Utah's just like, nope, we're going to clog it up in a second. Teo Johnson in particular, Utah's tackling on the outside, incredibly impressive. That's why it was so weird when there was that one play late in the game where Baylor one receiver broke like 5 tackles because you're like, huh? What just happened? Because it hadn't happened all game long. But Teo Johnson was flying around the field making plays. Nate Ritchie, my goodness, living behind the line of scrimmage. Hate to see Gilman get ejected for targeting. Unfortunately, was the right call. Just a bad situation and circumstance that time. Smith Snowden was really good. Cameron Calhoun, Elijah Davis stepping up. Samaya Vaughn. Just, yes, every once in a while, Baylor would move the ball, do a little bit. But like overall, there wasn't anything to be had because the Utah defense is tremendous. They can cover. They can play zone. They can play man. They can get home with 4. They can blitz and get home too. Like, it's just, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it's the best it's not one of the 3 best defenses in college football right now. Still need to concede them do it against some of the best teams. I absolutely think I think right now they very well might be a top 5 defense in the country. And they still need to play better opponents and do things of that nature. But watch what they were doing. And I still think so much more of what happened in the second half was Utah getting tired, because when this Utah defense is fresh, I mean, they just wreak havoc out there. And I love watching them go to work. This defense is capable. Even if Isaac Wilson had to start against Oklahoma State and he could just do enough, Utah's defense is capable of winning in a place like Stillwater. It's that good. I don't know. You can watch after these first few games and not feel that way. So impressed. It felt like everyone on the defense had a moment. I mentioned the D line, the D ends with some of the sacks and things. Both Reed and Barton just making impressive and challenging tackles. Safeties flying through, whether it's Johnson or Richie. Just so many game-changing plays by this Utah defense. And that's why you see a program like Baylor barely able to muster 12 points. And no, Utah didn't end up covering. I said they were gonna. I still firmly believe that if Cam Rising played in the second half, and I know Utah stalled a couple times still, but just there's a reason they were also scoring a lot early. And some of the reasons they stalled were funny, right? Like you get things like Carson Ryan had a little bit of a drop. Dallin Bentley clearly gets hit before he was going to catch a pass, and they don't throw a flag either. And then Cam and Dorian Singer just barely not connecting. Like I just have to believe some plays like that go Utah's way in the second half. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Speaking of things going Utah's way, just once again, like what a tremendous block by O'Toole and Fillinger to spring Teo Johnson's big kickoff return. And love, of course, him and Zemayaphon high-fiving as they go into the end zone. I mean, how can you not just think that's fantastic? So I love that, obviously. And I did not know that you could jump. I don't think they jump directly over the center, but jump to the side as long as you can't use each other, but you can use the guards there to kind of like propel yourself up. So just such smart coaching by Utah. Just like I just love when Utah runs the defensive lineman on or off when the offense subs late, so that drives the coaches nuts. Nothing will ever match what they were doing against USC last year, especially the way the defensive tackles were like faking that they didn't know they were coming out. But this is the next best thing, right? So just love what we're seeing out of this Utah defense, flying around the field, making plays. A strip sack by O'Toole early. While we're talking about favorite plays, how awesome was the jet sweep to Monty Parks? I mean, when he turned the corner, zoom, he was gone. Dorian Singer threw a great block on it. I was nervous because when that got sprung, I obviously saw the flag go in, but it was nice to see it get waved off, and just nice to see Utah have that quarter where it's like, okay, and once again, we expect Cam to come back. This Utah team, if Cam can get back and healthy, still clearly the best in the Big 12 to me. The defense is the best overall unit in the Big 12, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds with this squad. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Isaac Wilson's performance. I do think that's something that deserves a little bit more discussion in this game, as well as a couple other things that I just stood out and found very notable. So I want to break a few more of those things down with you all in one moment. But first, I want to talk with you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes. It's our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. You can keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All righty, closing this one out with a few more last moment thoughts. Another thing, everyone's going to tell you that Baylor sucks this week. Utah fans, like, we know that this is what the Big 12 is going to do. They'll be like, oh, Utah just got lucky they played Baylor. Baylor's terrible. I don't think Baylor's as bad as they seemed. I think it's more good Utah. And I'm not, once again, DeQuan Finn had issues. He did not play well. Baylor had issues. The Bears didn't always play well. But how many times are we going to see a team come out to Salt Lake City and not look like themselves? I think this Baylor team is going to give other Big 12 teams in the conference some problems. It's just very hard to win inside Rice-Eccles Stadium. We see teams kind of implode and make these mistakes frequently, and I still believe that was what the case was tonight. So I do think this Baylor team by the end of the season will be like, oh yeah, they were a solid team. I don't know if they'll get bowl eligible, but they will be right in. They will be right on the cusp of that, I firmly believe. And I think that once again, everyone will be like, oh, Baylor stinks. It's not that Baylor stinks. I'm not saying Baylor's even a top 25 team, but I think to act like Baylor and Arkansas aren't, if Arkansas is maybe a tier above Baylor, that's it. I think Baylor's would be right behind them too. And I think Daquan Finn's only going to get better and grow as the season carries on too. So there's that. And then once again for Utah and Wilson, Utah fans, don't act like the sky is completely falling, because we did see the running game get going late. I gave the offensive line. I've been critical of them so far. And I was critical of them last week. They weren't always perfect tonight, couple sacks and things that happened. But that last drive, Utah needed to put the game away, and they really did. I mean, marching it all the way down the field like that. I know the field goal was missed in the end, but love seeing that offensive line and Mekhi Bernard go to work. That's on me. I should have mentioned Mekhi's name a lot sooner in this episode, by the way. 19 carries, 118 yards, averaging 6 yards a carry. Love seeing Mekhi get rolling. He's clearly this team's lead back right now, right? Good to see Dejon Stanley get some more carries mixed in. He's just such an athlete that, when he gets those opportunities, he's going to make the most of them. I mean, he had 1 catch for 5 yards, but even his runs, right? He had 3 carries for 16 yards. That's good for 5 yards to carry still. So love seeing Stanley continue to be involved. Wilson is a guy who I still think has grown and gotten a little bit better each week. The other thing to keep in mind is Utah, whenever Wilson comes in, he is coming in to follow a game plan crafted around Cam Rising. I do think Andy Ludwig's game plans crafted around Isaac Wilson will help him look better than he has looked, at least like when he just comes in as a backup. Just like how Bryson Barnes had games like at Washington, at USC, right, where Andy Ludwig constructed a game plan. And no, the Utah offense wasn't as good as it was with Cam Rising, but those quarterbacks look better because Andy Ludwig was crafting up something that suited their skill sets. I will also be honest though and say I am concerned about the backup room. Originally, I wasn't concerned. I looked at the backup room like this. Brandon Rose almost beat out Bryson Barnes last year. Brandon Rose had another year to grow and develop and improve. So he's right on the cusp of, and probably would have beaten Bryson if he stayed, based on those reports and things that happened, because I just felt like he was growing and improving. If Isaac beat them out, then that's awesome. That means Isaac must be at this level. But maybe we're going to get it proved that that's not the case. And maybe this quarterback room is a bigger concern than we thought. And in that case, that will be on Utah for not doing a good enough job of developing their quarterbacks and not bringing in the proper talent, although it's hard in the transfer portal, right? Sam Heward agreed to come, but he's a guy that came in too late in the game and also was only agreed. You're not going to get a great veteran quarterback to come who's going to want to be a backup, because that's not what college football is. That's just not how that works in general. So Utah could have a backup QB problem. I still think it's a little early to tell. Wilson's definitely had his struggles, but still getting a feel and growing each and every game, I believe. And yeah, I think that overall, just to summarize this one, I think Utah's defense is tremendous. I think the offense had some really nice moments, faltered at times. The Cam still getting back in the field. The offensive line still growing experience, but I feel good about this Utah team, assuming Cam can get back. So knock on wood, hopefully Cam is back very, very soon. Would love to see him against Utah State. Totally understand if we do not. But either way, crazy thing, we only got one more non-conference game. That we'll be breaking that one down later in the week as Utah takes on Utah State. But first, we got to talk about on tomorrow's show, we'll be breaking down the film from the Baylor game. What did we see from the other positions? Where can Utah improve on? And then I will also be discussing some of the other crazy things that happened in the Big 12 a little bit more in depth, because it was a wild week across the conference. So that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. Thank you all for tuning in again. Check out Locked On College Football or Locked On Big 12 if you're in the market for a second listen every day. And I'll see you all back here later this week. Have a fantastic Sunday, everyone. And as always, go Utes, because even when there are some gloomy parts like a Cam Rising going down, a win is still a win. All righty. I'll see you guys soon.